For 75 years, Murfreesboro Medical Clinic has been a cornerstone of health and compassion in our community. From our humble beginnings to the advanced, comprehensive care we offer today, our commitment to you has never wavered. With 8 locations across Murfreesboro and Middle Tennessee and over 100 physicians, we continue to provide the highest standard of care. Then, now, and always, your health is our mission.
Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Welcome into the Roundtable in WGNS. I'm Andy Herzer, founder and executive director of First Shot. Man, it's been a long-time friend now. I get to have in John Jakes. I find him to be one of the deepest thinkers I've been around in a long time, and I enjoy it every time we get together and we talk. John, welcome in.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you for a few minutes.
So, going back to growing up in Alabama, talk a little bit about that and how it led you to become a submariner.
Well, I did grow up in Alabama. I grew up in a town called Hartselle, and one of my neighbors was a kid named Randy Campbell, and he had the ability to throw a football anywhere in our yard or his yard through a tire, and he went on to be quarterback at Auburn from 81 to 83, and he was a passing quarterback. The problem was that he had a running back named Bo Jackson. And so Bo Jackson kind of took away his passing. So I grew up in Alabama, graduated from Hartselle High School, and I started working in retail and realized that was a dead end. So my brother was already in the Navy, so I decided to follow him into the Navy. And when I got into the Navy, I ended up, my path was to end up on submarines.
So what year did you join the Navy, and how old were you?
I was 18. I joined the Navy in 1982. And so I was in from 1982 to 1986. And I served on a ballistic missile submarine, made 7 patrols. We would be underwater for 11 weeks at a time. And we would just go out and carry 24 nuclear missiles and just be prepared to shoot those at any time during the Cold War. And so it was a very unique experience.
So looking back at the history of submarines, because you're a historian in this more than anybody else I know in Rutherford County. Talk about the history a little bit and why you're so passionate about it.
Well, I'm passionate about it. Right now, I am currently serving as the National Commander of United States Submarine Veterans, which is 12,000 submarine veterans nationwide. We have 165 chapters or bases, and so we are advocates for submarine veterans who have health issues, mental health issues. We just awarded 70 scholarships through our charitable foundation. And so what we try to do is to help anybody that's been on submarines that are having any kind of VA issue. We're identifying specific health issues that we all have in common. And so that's been a 2-year labor of love. But I am passionate about submarine history. I've studied submarine history for 35 years. As you know, my office down on South Church Street in Belmont Park is a submarine museum. We've been very fortunate that we've had more than 3,000 people from 35 states as they pass through Middle Tennessee, which is a great central point with you having 40, 65, 24. We've had a number of people that have come to our office, and that was one of my goals when I first started my office 35 years ago, is to have a place that people would want to come and see that are not clients of mine. We don't do any business together, that it's a destination. And so I have one of the top 5 collections of submarine memorabilia probably in the country that's not in an existing museum. We get artifacts all the time delivered to our office. In fact, about 3 weeks ago, a man who was on submarines from 1948 to 1972, his nephew brought 4 big trunks full of stuff that his uncle had that he didn't know what to do with, didn't want to throw it away. So he brought it to my office and said, please do something with this. So part of it I've given it away, part of it I've donated to other museums, and part of it I've incorporated into my collection at my office.
So you got one of the top 5 collections. Talk about what's there and why somebody should want to come visit your office just to see the submarine collection you have.
Well, there's a lot of people that are interested in the submarine community. If you study submarine history in World War II, 3% of the Navy sunk 50% of Japanese shipping. In the Cold War, it was the submarine community that maintained the detente because of a policy called Mutual Assured Destruction, MAD. And so reason that we were never attacked during the Cold War is because we had 60 submarines patrolling out there that could launch an immediate retaliatory strike. And so people come to my office to see, I have everything from submarine art to plaques to gauges to badges, memorabilia. I have a submarine radio, just a whole gamut of stuff. And we continually get new things. Matter of fact, I recently got a package maybe in the spring of this year that came addressed to me. It just said, John the Submarine Guy, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And the post office delivered it to me. And so we have, we've been really blessed because I've never sold anything that anybody's given me on eBay. And as people get older and they start wondering, what do I do with my submarine stuff? My uniforms, my plaques, my badges, things that I accumulated. And somehow people say, well, there's this guy in Murfreesboro, get it to him. And then what I do is I either get it to other submarine veterans, or I get it to other submarine museums, or I incorporate it into my office. But right now I've run to the point to where I have really no more space. And my wife has said nothing else can come home. And so I can't bring anything else home. And so I've kind of reached my limit. But I enjoy hosting people. That's really my passion, is have people come to the office, let me give them the nickel tour. And we've got some people coming on Friday that are passing through Middle Tennessee. They're going down to Chattanooga. And they called me and said, hey, can we stop and see your office on the way to Chattanooga? I said, sure. And so that's really a joy for me, is to have something that people that are not clients of mine and have no relationship with me, they want to come and check it out.
So when you look at the history of subs, how long have we've had submariners? Who was the first? And
so we've had submarines since 1900, and we've had all different various stages of submarines. Right now, like in World War II, we lost 52 submarines. We lost 3,500 people. 20% of everybody that made a submarine patrol in World War II was lost. That was one of the highest casualty rates of any particular division. 20% of everybody that was on a submarine in World War II did not make it home. And so we try to honor those people. Theodore Roosevelt, back in the early 1900s, when he was president, he rode a submarine. And when he came back, he signed an executive order, which is still in effect today. And he said, those guys need special pay. So submarine sailors, they get their regular pay, they get submarine pay, they get sea pay, and they also get hazardous duty pay. So they get some additional compensation for serving on a submarine. Now, one of the things that I find really interesting is we just had a convention in Orlando earlier this month, and we had about 600 submarine veterans get together in Orlando, and we had a female submarine officer come to talk to us. And the submarine that she was on, 8 out of 18 officers were female. And she said 55 out of 150 crew members were female. So the demographics have changed in the submarine community, and the females are doing phenomenally well serving on submarines.
So the mentality to me, John, to put yourself in a tin can and go below, what is it, a different mentality than most?
It's really, Andy, it's a mental exercise. You have to be able to control your feeling of claustrophobia. You've got to be really prepared. If you could just think about it, in your house, let's say you had 50 of your very best friends come and stay 2 months at your house, not being able to look out the window, no fresh food, no fresh air, whatever you have, you have. After 30 days, you're going to want to throw somebody out. So it's a mental exercise, and it takes a special person to do that. When I was just up at the submarine base in Groton, Connecticut, over the summer, and I went to speak to the submarine enlisted school there, 40% of the students were female. So they have the mental toughness to serve on submarines. Because once you leave port and you go underwater, you may be 2 months or 3 months or 4 months without ever surfacing. So you get no sunlight, no fresh food, no fresh air. And so it's really a mental challenge to be able to control yourself to do that.
So when you look at the demographics changing, what are some of the issues that are going to arise with the female and the males?
Well, I mean, you have things. Submarines are very close quarters. And whenever you have a casualty, say a fire or flooding or something, you have to really respond to that however you're dressed, whatever you're wearing, and you've got to be able to just immediately address that. But they have worked really well to incorporate females. They just built, I went and toured, I was invited by the Navy to go tour a submarine that they just launched in April, the USS Iowa. And it's a Virginia-class attack submarine.
So, no, you're going to have to explain it.
Okay.
Because a lot of people, when you say Virginia classes, let's talk about that. How many different classes of submarines are there?
You have primarily two different types of submarines. You have, well, maybe three submarines. So you have the missile-carrying submarines, which carry nuclear missiles. And then you have guided submarines, which carry ballistic, like Tomahawk missiles. So when we attacked Iran a couple of months ago, there was a submarine, probably the USS Georgia, that launched a bunch of Tomahawk missiles in support of that. So some of the first four of the Tridents, which are the big boats like I was on, the Trident boats, they're 560 feet long, almost 2 football fields. When I was on there, it carried 24 nuclear missiles, but it's been retrofitted to carry 154 Tomahawk missiles. And it also carries a SEAL team. So it has a SEAL delivery unit mounted on the top. And so you've got the ballistic missiles, you've got your Tomahawks or your guided missiles, and then you've got an attack submarine like the Virginia class. And what they're basically to do is to attack ships and other submarines. So the submarine that I just went and visited, the Navy invited me to come up to Connecticut and visit it. And it was built from the ground up to be co-ed crew. So it has separate berthing, it has separate bathrooms, and it has a separate quarters for the chiefs that are female. So that allows them some privacy, and it allows them some space, and it also allows for separation of, because you got 19, 20, 21-year-old men, 19, 20, 21-year-old females. There's all kind of problems that can happen if you don't have good discipline on board the boat.
So you went in 18 years old. How long did it take you to be trained and ready to go?
So I went in September, and I went to supply school, and then I went to submarine school in December and January, and by February 15th, I was assigned to my submarine.
Wow. And then what was it like the first time going down?
Well, for me, the experience that stuck most in my mind is the first time you go into deep water, And you're talking about something that is 2 football fields long, 560 feet long. It's 42 feet in diameter. And when you get into deep water, at 100 feet, there's 44 pounds of pressure per square inch. So at 1,000 feet, there's 440 pounds of pressure per square inch. So when you get into deep water the first time and you hear metal moaning and groaning and twisting, it would be just like you getting into a 55-gallon drum and all of a sudden you start putting pressure on that 55-gallon drum and you start hearing that metal creak and moan and you go, oh my goodness. But so the first time you hear metal under compression, that is something that you'll never forget.
So what is the depth that they can go now?
Some of the newer submarines can go, 1,500 feet. We were limited primarily, unless we absolutely needed to 600 feet.
So the experience, how do you stay focused?
So the hardest part about being on a submarine is, in addition to being confined and not being able to get any sunlight, fresh air, is that a submarine operates on an 18-hour day instead of a 24-hour day. Right now, we operate on a 24-hour day. But on a submarine, you sleep for 6 hours, you stand watch, whatever your job is, for 6 hours, and then you study or have free time for 6 hours, and then you sleep again for 6 hours. So you have to change the rhythm of your body, your circadian rhythm, if you've heard of that. You have to change that from a 24-hour day to an 18-hour day. And that's a big adjustment to try to get into that cycle. And the reason they do that is because they only have enough crew members for 3 6-hour watches. And so they rotate the crew every 6 hours for whoever's standing watch, like in the engine room or sonar or the torpedo room or whatever. So you have to try to adjust your body and your sleep cycle to get into an 18-hour day instead of a 24-hour day. The other adjustment is that, as you know, in your household, after about a week or 10 days, most of your fresh food is consumed. So then you're into frozen, canned, dehydrated. And so, that's an adjustment too, to go into non-fresh milk, non-fresh food, to going into either canned or frozen or dehydrated.
So experiencing that type of food, what was that like for a guy that probably grew up and had a lot of fresh food on his table?
Well, the submarines, and one of the reasons I ended up on submarines, the submarines have the best food in the Navy. Matter of fact, there was a cook on my boat that had just come from the Ronald Reagan White House. He was a night cook in the White House with Ronald Reagan. And Reagan would get up in the middle of the night and come down and sit there at a table and say, hey, would you guys cook me a pork tenderloin sandwich or a fried egg sandwich? And so he had been to the Culinary Institute of America. So we had great cooks and great food. They could do marvelous stuff. And the skipper of the submarine that I was on, the whole morale of the crew is directly tied to the food. So he demanded a food quality that was top notch. So we had phenomenal. We had pizza night. We would have surf and turf, which is steak and seafood. We would have different specialty nights throughout the whole patrol to break it up. And then we had a great dessert, and we got every morning the cooks would make us specialized omelets. So whatever you wanted, we could get.
So it sounds like you really didn't have a whole lot of time to think or be still.
Well, if you don't keep your mind busy, the thing that I was able to do is I developed a love of books. I read, I probably would read 20 or 25 or 30 books every time I went to sea, just to stay busy. Because if your mind is not busy and you start realizing that you're confined, it starts to play with you mentally. So you always have to be busy doing something. And I found that reading really helped me, and that's carried carried on with me my whole life. I'm a volunteer over at the library. I work over there most every day with the Friends of Limeball Library. We take used books and we sell them to support off-budget items for the library. And that's a passion of mine. And so I've always been a big book person. And so if you're not busy, then you've got idle time in your mind, and that's where you start having some mental health issues.
So let's go back a little bit. Because I was listening to you. During World War I, how were subs used?
Primarily just as they got late. They were late to the war, so they didn't really do too much. And then in the interwar period between 1918 and 1942 or 1941, it was really just a upgrading all of our submarines and trying to develop new tactics. And then once the fleet was destroyed at Pearl Harbor, it was only the submarines that were left to carry the war to the Japanese in the Pacific Fleet. So it was primarily the submarines that were able to be on the offense while everybody else was on the defense, and they were trying to rebuild and refurbish all the ships that were sunk in Pearl Harbor.
So you look at this Second World War, you had a huge statistic of 20% of people getting on a sub. I'm not so sure 1 in 5, that's not a good odds for me.
Well, it's not, but why do we study history? That's an interesting question, and we study history to see how we're connected to it. Quick example, my fifth great-grandfather fought at the Battle of Shiloh, and he fought in the Bloody Pond over at Shiloh with the 23rd Missouri. And opposite him was a man named George W. Dixon. George W. Dixon, after the Battle of Shiloh, became the commanding officer of the USS Hundley, which was found by the author Clive Cussler in Charleston Harbor and raised. So they DNA matched all the bones when they raised the Hundley. Now, here's the thing. The Hundley crew that was sunk, they sunk the Housatonic. That was the first submarine that sank a ship, the Union ship, the Housatonic. But that actually was the third crew, so they were able to get volunteers for another crew after 2 had previously drowned. But anyway, the reason we study history is see how we're connected to it. So I got a chance in 2004 to be a pallbearer at the Hundley funeral for the guy who fought against my fifth great-grandfather at the Battle of Shiloh. So that's kind of cool.
It's always cool. We're going to take a quick break and be back with John Jakes on the Roundtable.
For 75 years, Murfreesboro Medical Clinic has been a cornerstone of health and compassion in our community. From our humble beginnings to the advanced, comprehensive care we offer today, our commitment to you has never wavered. With 8 locations across Murfreesboro and Middle Tennessee and over 100 physicians, we continue to provide the highest standard of care. Then, now, and always, your health is our mission.
What's the location of your emergency?
I think my kid OD'd.
Hi, I'm Craig Harris. I'm County Commissioner of Rutherford County. One of the reasons I ran for office is because I wanted to bring awareness to the opioid epidemic that's impacting our county. To stop providing this epidemic with people as we educate. We have a lot to do, and we have to come together as a community because this problem is not going away.
This is Chip Walters, and I'm honored to be your 2024 MTAR Realtor of the Year. I'm with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates, and like many of you, I've seen the real estate market shift and change. People often ask, Chip, what's really going on? Well, that's a great question, and I believe in answering with solid, factual data. So let's cut through some of the noise. I invite you to reach out. Let's have a conversation about your real estate goals and the current market trends in your neighborhood. You can find all my contact information at choosechip.net.
Choosing the right insurance can be overwhelming. That's where Rick Hall at Rayburn Insurance comes in. At Rayburn, we're not just about policies, we're about people. Rick Hall will take the time to understand your needs and find the best coverage at the best price. We've been serving our community since 1973. So why not let Rick Hall take the stress out of insurance? Rick Hall at Rayburn Insurance Agency, where you're more than just a policy number. You're our neighbors.
Good Neighbor Events is brought to you by the law offices of John Day, AmeriCare Pest Control, and Old National Bank.
This is a paid legal ad.
I'm attorney John Day. My wife Joy and I love dogs and have one of our own. But we've also helped people who have been injured by dog bites and dog attacks, as well as bicyclists who crashed after a dog attack. You need to know that the dog owner may have insurance to help pay medical bills and other expenses because of a dog attack. If your loved one has been injured by a dog, call the law offices of John Day for a free consultation.
WGNS encourages you to shop local. Let's patronize our local family businesses. Our hats off to the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department's School Resource Officers. Their 5th annual charity golf tournament is all day this Saturday at the Old Fort Park Golf Course, and all the proceeds help needy and special needs children. Thank you to the SROs. Hey, are you new to town? Maybe you'd like to learn more about our local community. Head on over to the one-room Ransom Schoolhouse this Saturday, anytime between 9 in the morning and noon. The Rutherford County Historical Society is there to share local history and answer your questions. It's all free. Again, that's anytime. Just drop in 9 until noon this Saturday at the one-room Ransom Schoolhouse. That's at 717 North Academy Street. Oh, this is always fun. The Puppy Plunge is this Saturday morning at 10 in the outdoor pool at Sportscom. Don't miss that one, and bring your pups with you. 10 o'clock Saturday morning. The Puppy Plunge. It's free in the outdoor pool at Sportscom. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Rutherford weather.
A few scattered showers and storms at times this afternoon. Cloudy, a high in the upper 80s. Tonight, chance for rain and storms, a low of 67. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki from the WGNS Rutherford Weather Center.
Currently, it's 71.
WGNS is powered by Middle Tennessee Electric. As a member of MTE, you have access to educational resources to help you tailor energy use to your lifestyle. Interested in electric vehicles? MTE offers incentives to learn about EVs and connect with others who share your interest.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Welcome back into the Roundtable, WGNS. I'm Andy Herzer, founder and executive director of First Shot. John, we were talking World War II that our subs were really pivotal for us to be on the offensive while everybody else will talk about how they operated during World War II to be on the offensive. What did they go and do?
Well, they were trying to attack and stop Japanese warships and shipping, and also troop transports. So that's what they would look for, is they would go into the Japanese homeland, the inland sea, the China Sea, all around the islands around Australia, New Zealand, all the way up through the Philippines, all the way up to mainland China, looking for either military warships or freighters, because Japanese had to import all of their oil, rubber, and most of their metals. And so they were moving that stuff to build their navy. And so we were trying to disrupt that. And also they were moving vast numbers of troops into the islands in the Pacific to start moving toward either Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, and maybe even to the west coast of the United States. So the submarines, their primary task was to try to stop that, slow it down. And like I said earlier, a very small percentage of the Navy was responsible for sinking 50% of the Japanese merchant and military warship fleet.
So it's amazing to me that how everything evolves, and you look after World War II, how did the submarine evolve?
So after World War II, we brought back some captured German U-boats. There's still one in Chicago at the Science and Industry Museum in Chicago, the U-505. But we brought those back after the war, and we reverse engineered them, took them apart, and at that same time, we started developing controlled nuclear power plants. And so the Nautilus was launched in 1954. It was the first nuclear submarine. And actually a Tennessee congressman named William Robert Anderson was the second commanding officer of the Nautilus before he became a congressman in Tennessee from the Dixon area. And he took the Nautilus under the North Pole in 1958. They went from the west to the east under the North Pole. Now, just as a matter of side note, the North Pole is going to be probably one of the most important areas in future warfare. That's the reason that Donald Trump has talked about taking over Greenland. And we've got some military bases up in the North Ice Pack. The Chinese and the Russians also have military bases up there. And the reason for that is from that vantage point, you can lob missiles over Canada into the United States and pretty much all over North America. So the North Pole is going to be very critical in our war planning strategy. We've got submarines that go under the North Pole and surface at the North Pole pretty frequently.
So today, Marines too?
Absolutely. Right now we're building one new submarine a year, and the Chinese have 6 shipyards building submarines 24/7. And so they don't have the technology, they don't have the training, they don't have the history that the U.S. submarine force has as far as the just the whole process of manning submarines. But they are building a lot of them, and that at some point in the future is going to be a problem. Right now, we've only got maybe 3 shipyards building submarines and ships. So that's something that we're going to have to try to figure out. How do we reman shipyards to build warships, submarines, and even commercial freighters? There's no shipyard in the United States that builds commercial freighters right now.
So where are all the commercial freighters being built?
They're building over in Eastern Europe and in Scandinavia and some of the Mediterranean countries, they're building the merchant ships, but the United States has gotten out of that business. It's all moved overseas.
Wow, it's crazy how it's how we get so much of our goods. So
yeah,
and we have no control. That's what you're telling us.
We have no control. So we've got to reman and train welders and pipe fitters and shipbuilders and naval engineers to start doing that again and bringing that back stateside.
So looking to the future of submariners, what does that look like, do you think?
Well,
or are you
probably in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to have our first female submarine captain. And that's going to be a paradigm shift from the last 125 years. Submarines have been around for 125 years. And probably in the next 2 years, we'll have a female submarine captain. Females are volunteering for the submarine force. The submarine force is all volunteer. And so they're volunteering in numbers higher than men. And so that's going to be a paradigm shift that you're going to see probably 50% of the crew be female at some point in the next 5 years.
Wow. And with that, obviously they're always looking at new technology, faster boats.
Well, right now submarines, they're looking at things like deploying autonomous vehicles. And in the future, all wars are going to be fought with precision strike weaponry, which means that like a Tomahawk missile, for instance, that a submarine can shoot. My old submarine has been converted from carrying 24 nuclear missiles to 154 Tomahawk missiles. It's deployed right now somewhere in the Pacific, probably over by South Korea, I would guess. And a Tomahawk missile, they can put that missile in 1 meter square, which is 3 foot 3 inches by 3 foot 3 inches. The GPS that we have on our phone and in our car is accurate up to about 6 to 8 feet. Now, the military has some that is accurate to 4 inches square. So if you have an incoming missile, that's the reason that they can launch a drone strike and hit the roof of a car, because they can pinpoint that precision strike weapon within 4 square inches.
So when I look at that, and maybe you can't talk about it, what type of submariner does it take to have that precision? How much?
Well, it's all technology. When I went to go visit the USS Iowa back over the summer, I was amazed that instead of having hydraulic controls and gauges and dials like we had on the submarine I was on, they have a pilot and a co-pilot, and it's all controlled with a joystick. They control the whole submarine, surfacing, going down. They control it all with a joystick, just like a pilot would have. And so they actually call them the pilot and the co-pilot. And in the control room, instead of having gauges and dials and all the mechanical stuff that we had, it was all just computer screens. It's all touch screen. So it's a whole different level of technology that is replacing some of the old submarines. Now, the submarine that I was on was commissioned November the 11th, 1981. So in November of this year, it will be in service 44 years. They were going to try to retire it at 45, but the new Columbia class, which is a replacement missile carrying submarine, is behind schedule. So they may have to delay that by 5 years. So would you like to be on a submarine that's 50 years old?
No, thank you. No, thank you.
That's a lot of metal stress. That's a lot of diving and surfacing and angles and dangles and stuff. I don't know that I would want to be on a submarine that was 50 years old.
We're going to shift a little bit, John.
Okay.
You said at the very beginning that you are kind of championing the cause of submariners, veterans. Talk about some of the long-term effects and what's going on.
Well, on submarines, of course, they have a controlled atmosphere. On the submarine, every submarine makes its own oxygen. It makes its own water. You have to control the atmosphere. So there's a lot of chemicals that submariners are exposed to. And what we're trying to do is we're doing some studies across a lot of people from a lot of different generations to see what commonalities we have in diseases that we're facing. Prostate cancer is probably 2 times or 3 times the national average among submarine sailors. Diabetes is twice the rate. High blood pressure, twice the rate of the general population. And so we're trying to look at a cause-effect to see, can we directly attribute that to exposures on submarines? There's a lot of, because everything is kept internal in the submarine. All the chemicals, the air, everything is kept internal. So you're breathing this stuff. Now, when I was on there, probably a third of our crew smoked. Now, they don't allow smoking on submarines anymore, but you can imagine out of 150 guys on my boat, probably 50 of them smoked. Well, that's a lot of smoke that's trapped inside a...
But that's a lot of cigarettes to keep for three months, John.
It is.
And one of those guys run out, I wouldn't want to be a guy having withdrawals from nicotine.
Well, yeah. That's where you have to do a lot of forward planning. What I would do is I would bring snacks. I would bring sodas, chewing gum. If I was a smoker, I would have brought more than enough cigarettes. You have to think what you're going to need. And of course, the first time you go to sea, you don't know what you need. And so it's all learning experience. So the first time you go to sea on your first patrol, like I had just turned 19, never had been. So I didn't know that I needed to bring my own chocolate bars, my own chewing gum, my own soda, extra shaving cream, extra toothpaste, extra socks, all the stuff that after you've been there and you go, man, I wished I had that, but there's no place to get it.
So you're 11, 12 weeks down. You come up, you're in port. How long are you before you can go back down again?
So the submarine that I was on had 2 separate crews. So what we would do so that they could keep that submarine mostly at sea, we would come in and we would do 21 days of repair, replenish, refit, and then the other crew would take the submarine right back out. So there were 21-day breaks, and then while they were out, we would go either on leave, go to school, take training, or whatever. So you were gone for basically 3 months. You'd have 21 days of turnover, and then the other crew would take it for 3 months, and then you would have time to do something else. And then when they come in, it would be just the same. You would have 21 days of repairs and replenish, and then you would go back out.
So second time out, what did you take different?
Well, I mean, second time out, I was more prepared. I knew all the stuff that I would think, what I would want. Like I said, I took all my candy and stuff that you would never think that you would have a craving for. Chips and cookies or something that maybe you just want to have chewing gum.
So you'd read 25 books. That takes space. Did you guys, Yeah, what would happen is the women from the local churches would bring to the base boxes of books that they had collected for us. And then we would load them on board. And once we got out to sea, we would find where they were stowed, and we would just make them available to everybody. So you would read it and just pass it around. So everybody kind of read the same books. Man, I just, again, for me, a little claustrophobic. I don't know how I could have done it, but we're going to take our last break and be right back with John Jakes.
For 75 years, Murfreesboro Medical Clinic has been a cornerstone of health and compassion in our community. From our humble beginnings to the advanced, comprehensive care we offer today, our commitment to you has never wavered. With 8 locations across Murfreesboro and Middle Tennessee and over 100 physicians, we continue to provide the highest standard of care. Then, now, and always, your health is ours.
Get ready for an unforgettable night and support First Shot. Autumn at the Alley is coming to Oakland's Mansion Tuesday, September 24th from 6 to 9 p.m. Sip on fine bourbon, wine, and spirits, enjoy premium cigars, and feast on incredible food from the Alley on Main, all while enjoying live music under the stars. Proceeds benefit First Shot's Academic All-Stars and Send the Kid to Camp programs. Find out more on their Facebook page and through Eventbrite, Autumn at the Alley, September 24th.
What's the location of your emergency?
I think my kid OD'd.
Hi, I'm Craig Harris. I'm County Commissioner of Rutherford County. One of the reasons I ran for office is because I wanted to bring awareness to the opioid epidemic that's impacting our county. To stop providing this epidemic with people as we educate them. We have a lot to do, and we have to come together as a community because this problem is not going away.
Turn to Turner Security.
Hey, it's Brian, and we've relied on Turner Security for systems here at WGNS and Big GTV for many years. Their advanced security solutions with real-time monitoring and automation keep us safe. Plus, their expert IT service ensures our tech runs smoothly, from networks, computers to troubleshooting. Their team tailors solutions to our needs, and I highly recommend them for home or business solutions for you.
Turn to Turner Security.
When the weather turns bad, minutes, even seconds matter.
This is an early heads up for southern Rutherford County.
Rutherford Weather brings you live radar and expert meteorologist insight, giving you the early heads up when storms threaten.
A lot of areas are going to see some impacts from this storm.
From analysis to live camera views, we keep you informed before, during, and after the storm.
I think the vast majority of the hail with this now is going to be quarter to perhaps golf ball size.
Rutherford Weather. Stay ahead of the storm.
This is Kim Dunaway from Sunshine Nutrition Center. You hear me on Monday mornings at 7:20 talking about how to lead a healthier lifestyle. We carry supplements, personal care, and grocery items at both our Murfreesboro and Smyrna locations, family owned and operated since 1989.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Welcome back into WGNS and the Roundtable. I'm Andy Herzer, founder and executive director of First Shot. John, you talk about people traveling, and we're going to get to your office last, but if you're going up to the Northeast or to the South or West or Midwest, where are some museums?
There are 16 different submarines that you can go and tour. Like the Drum is down in Mobile. It's a World War II submarine. It's in great shape. They have completely redone it. There's one up in Massachusetts. There's one in Cleveland. The Cod is in Cleveland. They actually can run the diesels on the Cod. There's some up in, you can go see the U-505 in Chicago. There's some up in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. If you're going on Interstate 40, there's the Batfish, and it's in Muskogee, Oklahoma, out in the middle of a field. You can go see a submarine. And you can go to Little Rock, Arkansas and see the Razorback. We just got it back maybe 10 years ago from Turkey. And so there's one in San Francisco. So there's quite a few submarines that if you want to Google them, and wherever you're going, you can go and go aboard.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, that when I was coaching, we'd go and take kids to places like that. So, John, shifting to your office, you have you want people to just come there and not just be your clients, you said earlier. What is the mission?
Well, when I first started my office, every day I would pray that the Lord would bless my business. And then I stopped praying that prayer and I said, Lord, let me use my office just to speak truth to somebody. And so I've been very fortunate. I have a sign behind my desk that says, "It is well with my soul." And I have people from time to time go, "How do you know it's well with your soul?" And they open this door for a conversation. I'm very fortunate. Probably in my client base, we have every religious background that you can imagine. And I enjoy having theological discussions with them and just getting a banter back and forth. And, I have people all the time that will say, well, I don't know if I'm at peace with God. And I tell them, well, every day I'm at peace with God because God's at peace with me. And inevitably they go, well, how do you know that God's at peace with you? And I tell them that there's three foundational things that I believe. I believe that Jesus is who he says he is. And I believe him when he publicly stated that he had been granted all authority in heaven on earth, which he exhibited that, I think, more than 100 times on earth through things that nobody else could have done. And then the third thing that I believe is that he's sufficient to satisfy God. So when I stand before God, Jesus has the authority to pardon me, and that's going to be sufficient for God. Therefore, God's at peace with me, and I'm at peace with God. And I have people all the time say, well, should you not be doing this or doing that? Or and I always ask them, in Luke 23, what of that did the repentant thief do? And that always causes them pause, because the repentant thief did nothing more than recognize and acknowledge and believe. That's it. So he didn't do all the things that we're led to believe that we have to do to earn grace. One of the things that
You can't earn grace.
Can't earn grace. We limit grace by 2 words, if I. If I had done that, if I had not done that. If I had said that, if I had not said that. And one of the things I learned early on, and I've tried to use my office to perpetuate this, is that the Bible calls us to be seed sowers, but not seed growers. And so what I try to do is I throw it out there, and I'm perfectly satisfied to walk away. So I'll tell somebody that asks me in conversation, how do you know it's well with your soul? And I'll tell them, but then I expect no response. I expect no action. I don't pursue them. I don't chase them down. I'm satisfied to sow that seed and completely walk away. And that's what makes a lot of people frustrated. They minister to people and they get no response. They get no action. They get nothing that they can see, and they become frustrated. But like I said, I started praying every day. Lord, let me just speak truth to somebody today, and that will be enough. So after 35 years, that has worked really well.
So if you've never been to John's office, first you should go by just to see his collection. It's amazing. And secondly, it's always fun to be around John Jakes because he makes me think more deeply. And it is because I think you speak the truth. And you always say, or I always ask you, what are you chewing on right now? So explain that term, because you're the one that taught me that.
Well, I'm always pondering something. I'm always thinking, why is something like that? Like one of the things that I'm pondering right now, which I've been pondering for about 3 or 4 months, is when Jesus was resurrected, he didn't just resurrect himself. He brought other people back with him. The Bible says that he brought saints and they were seen by everybody. And I've been pondering, why did he do that? And I've had 15 or 20 different discussions on that, different points of view, different interpretations of those scriptures and stuff. But that's something I'm really trying to think deeply about, to try to understand, why was it necessary not only to resurrect himself, but to resurrect other saints at the same time.
So when you ponder, because you've been pondering on this one for a while, because you and I talked about it about a year ago. So tell people your process of pondering and finding out what your thoughts are so that you can come to a conclusion.
Well, I don't know that I ever come to a conclusion, but I try to get in and I try to look at historical context. Context in everything is so important, because, for example, if you use the word trunk, well, it's a different context if you're talking about travel, or you're talking about elephants, or you're talking about cars. All of those mean a different thing. So what I try to do is I try to look at the historical context. I try to look at the cultural context. I try to look at the language, try to look at, has the language been changed? Is there multiple interpretations of the same word? And that's where you have to really get in and dig and scratch to really try to understand. But as far as ever completely understanding, you don't get there. You just come up with a solution that satisfies you, and then you ponder something else.
Well, again, it's always good to visit with John Jakes. It's I always feel like I'm refreshed. And John, again, I think what people don't understand is, from your vantage point, all that you've done and all that you do in this community is out of the love of our Lord Jesus. And talk about that and some of the other things that are near and dear to your heart.
Well, I mean, I try to use my office. Everybody has a different calling and a different ministry. I'll give you an example. This client of mine was just telling me not long ago that he's been trying to find his plug-in place at his church for more than 20 years. And then he retired and he started working part-time at Home Depot. And now he's the older, wiser guy that counsels people on marriage problems, money problems, children problems, addiction problems, and other things. And he told me during taxi, he said, I always thought my ministry was at my church, but he said my ministry actually is at Home Depot. And so he has enjoyed that so much because he struggled to find where to plug in. And you've got to just keep searching for whatever your true ministry is. Just like your ministry is First Shot and young people and the underserved in the inner city. And that's a beautiful ministry. But everybody has a different ministry. Everybody has a different calling. I enjoy working with the library board, the Friends of Linebaugh Library. That's kind of my calling. That's my passion. I've always been passionate about books. And so, we just have to find what is it that our calling and our ministry is.
Well, again, thank you for coming on the show. Stop by his office. Give that address one more time.
It's in Belmont Park, which is where Job Hastings, the CPA firm Job Hastings, I'm in Suite 605 back at the back.
Give him a call. Go by and see John Jakes and his museum. It's a wonderful place, and I thank you for listening.
Subscribe to Big G TV, local content that matters to Rutherford County.